everyone, and welcome back to episode number 22 of the Knighted Ones podcast. We are the only podcast that features a former UCF National Champion who decided to take the week off, a former UCF radio host, and several podcasters shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. This week, we got another 50-50 week in men's hoops. We got a big win over Texas. And Houston, not so much, but we get to talk about the big win over Texas. And again, beating our expectations early in the season. So excited to talk about that. We also have a little bit of football talk to talk about with transfers and some changes, some coaching changes that have happened this past week. And a survey that got me super excited. I got the survey. Some of you who are season ticket holders got it as well. So we'll talk a little bit about what that was all about. And then we'll talk about a little P4 turmoil. And one thing I'll ask everyone, I usually do this at the end, but I want to do this at the beginning. For those of you that watch and listen and everything else, we really, really, really appreciate the fact that you've chosen to spend your time with us. Do us a favor and make sure that you're, liking, commenting, subscribing. And, on the different platforms like on iTunes or whatever, make sure you're giving us a review. And if you can't give us 5 stars, that's okay. We'd love 5 stars and we'd love you for it. But go ahead and give us some feedback on there and how we can improve, because it's really important for us to make the show better going forward. And ultimately, we're producing it for you. So do us the favor of making us better and also, review, like, comment, and subscribe. And with all that being said, we're a little short-staffed this week. We've got 2 of our key players out this week, but we do have the rest of the guys. So let's start with Nobra, the producer. He's back this week, so our production quality immediately went up. Nobra, how's it going, bro?
What's going on?
What's going on? What happened to Hey Now?
I did. I said it.
No, you said what's going on. That's not Hey Now.
I said as you were talking.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So you're trying to talk over. See, man, you're getting big for your britches. All right. No, bro. Welcome back to the show. Glad you're back, bro. And Alan, he's got the pose, the most interesting man in the world going on right now. Oh, so we got a hey, no now?
I don't know. I just wanted to throw something random out there, but yeah, how's it going, Roger?
It's going amazing. Glad to be here and be back with everyone, or almost everyone. And, it kind of throws me back to the other podcast we had going on. So with you, me, and Josh. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Josh Lazar again. Last but not least, but always last, Josh Lazar.
I have so much that came from that Texas game, and now I have a great introduction. That's something that goes on in our household. How dare you? How dare you? I'll talk more about how dare you because of that wonderful end to that Texas game soon enough. So that's my catchphrase now. How dare you?
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk a little bit about our thoughts on Rodney Terry and his scary Terry, end of game, for lack of a better term, tantrum. I mean, that's literally what that was. It was a temper tantrum and a very, okay, I'm not going to have Nobra have to do any editing this week. That's the goal. We had to do it twice last week. So I'm going to say the baby fit that he threw and terrible, atrocious, horrible from a PR and a marketing standpoint apology. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk a little text talk with UCF Hoops. So gents, the floor is yours. What did you have for your text talk this week? Don't everybody jump all at once.
Not everyone at
once. Don't go me to first.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I got so I went all Texas, even though I had some decent things in Houston. Not a lot of great to talk about. One of them from Houston was like, we're 3 for 27 and have not hit a field goal yet. Only threes. But Texas was a little bit better than that. So the first thing I talked about was that Sellers show and turnaround. And I had a bunch of smile emojis. So I don't know if you've played basketball. I know Roger has. I don't know if Alan has, but like the show and then turn around, jump back is like very, very 90s old school basketball. I remember trying to emulate Patrick Ewing doing that, albeit a ton shorter, when I was playing basketball growing up. And
I was going to say, like last week, Trey was missing a couple of inches. I think we're more than a couple of inches short of Patrick Ewing.
That is quite possible. I think he's in about 7 foot, and I'm like 6'11", so that's great. So this is I was trying to do this
with your heels on.
You're watching live
with your heels
on YouTube. I saw the drink going up. I'm like, maybe. So that show turnaround, that was just beautiful. And I know the commentators on the program were talking about it too. It was like a throwback type of move that I even remember trying to do and actually could do halfway decently when I was younger. Not at that level, but against friends in the playground, I can knock that out. Also, and this actually, we've seen some conversations about this elsewhere too. I brought up during that game that DJ being the 2 for a bit of time and Shamari Allen taking the point is going to be huge for the rest of the year. And I absolutely believe that. It's if we can start getting a little bit of pressure, not like press, but like actual pressure off of DJ, sometimes off of Sellers. I mean, even Avery was walking it up a couple of times. If we can get that pressure off and rotate them between having DJ be shooting or Allen be shooting guard, I think that'd be great. And I think that will probably be a progression as long as everyone stays healthy that we'll see in our upcoming games. That's what's going on.
All right, so I'm a little disappointed this week that you didn't at least pop one side of a collar because you've got a T-shirt on because that's what we do. That being said, we've been talking about that for weeks, how DJ does better when he's either on the bench or coming off the bench, or, which he only did one time this season, or gets the ball taken out of his hands. And we have the depth to do it. The Shamari, it's almost like you have to tell him it's okay for him to like really take the point. It's kind of funny. You see him go through the progressions before he gets comfortable doing that. And then, he can drive the paint in a way that DJ can't. So if you have DJ out there and, he and DJ just isn't getting it done, you put it in Shamari's hand, or he's being double teamed, or et cetera. Because you heard the Texas coach talk a lot about DJ before the game and say, "Hey, we're going to take him out, and focus on him defensively." Because he was averaging, I think, something like 16, 18 points per game. DJ was before the Houston game. So. Actually, I think it was 20 points per game before the Houston game. So, it makes sense strategically, but to have another option who needs to step up when he's called upon and be okay with that, it just takes him a hot minute to get in gear. Alan, what did you have this week?
So I had one being kind of shout out to the basketball team for covering the spread. Someone had said that it doesn't look.
We all know who the degenerate on this podcast is.
Someone said, Alan, not looking good for your plus 17.5, but it ended up being good because I had him at 15.5. And then someone said, at least we can make history today being the worst shooting team since Idaho's 12%. So I thought that was funny, but we shot better than 12% by a small margin. Just barely.
Yeah, that Houston game was, we were upset about the 29% that we shot at BYU, but that Houston
I would have begged for 29 in that game.
Yeah, well, we would have ran away with it with 29% shooting. But we'll get into Houston a little bit more. But let's talk about Texas. And before we start with Texas, I do want to start with one thing. And for those of you that are YouTube viewers, bite it, Rodney Terry.
Roger is doing a horns down.
Double horns down.
People of the internet, do double horns down. People of the internet, this is okay. we're used to doing this to that other team that really deserves it too.
Well, I think it's okay for every UCF fan ever. There we go. Alan's throwing one up or down, throwing one down. But I think that,
any person that doesn't like Texas should be able to do it.
Yeah, I think like Texas, and it's only like a quarter of their fans or a third of their fans that really have a problem with it. But what's interesting is they're going into the SEC next year. And with them going into the SEC next year, you've got people in LSU roasting Gators before every game. You've got guys in Georgia that bark at kids of opposing fans. I mean, you've got trees being killed on campus at Auburn. And there's countless stories.
That was so wrong.
If they're going to get that butt hurt, and I'm going to use that word, if you're going to get that butt hurt about someone throwing a hand sign down, they're going to get eaten alive in the SEC.
No, the SEC are just polite gentlemen waiting to applaud you for your efforts at the end of every game. I mean, that's what we all know the SEC as, right?
That's SMU. That's not the SEC, so the wrong S to go there. But let's talk a little bit about like the win over Texas, right? So wasn't looking so great at the beginning. Texas did a really good job of moving the ball. That was the thing that I was watching last week. I'd said I wasn't that impressed with them, and I wasn't. I still wasn't. They didn't. Their fundamentals in the basketball game were not something that I was scared of, but they moved the ball early against us. And because of that, they were able to get quick shots. So we actually went down again and we were down 12 at the half. And this, I think at this point we can confidently say that UCF is a second half basketball team.
Yeah.
Which I would rather say that we're a second half team because I don't want to get down by 16 to try to overcome it every week, but we do. But we do. Yeah. But the point is that means that they've got the heart to not give up when they're down. Last year, a lot of what we were talking about was if they got down or got down by a fair margin, the game was basically over because they gave up. And this year's team is not doing that. And so it makes it more exciting and definitely a lot of close games. The other thing, Sellers in this game, I mean, he was absolutely – this was the Sellers we've been looking for 4 to 5 games. At the beginning of the season, he was dynamic. He was, hit. And I think the key for him really is hitting confidently from 12 to 16 feet. And once he does that, then that kind of turns the rest of his game on because then people have to pull out of the paint to cover him. And it gets the defenses out of position. The challenge for him is being able to knock those shots down early, and he kind of feeds off of that. He led the team with 24 points on 7 of 12 shooting, which is pretty darn good. Allen, not our Allen, but the other Allen. Every time we say Allen, I think about our Allen. Posted, he was 17 of 7. And Darius had 11, 17 points, 7 for 4, right? That isn't right. 17, I don't know what that is. I'll have to look at the stats again. I'll come back to that. CJ Walker and Payne both did really well. CJ Walker is finally rounding into his own, right? So he was a little awkward the first few games back. He's catching the ball in stride now. He seems like he knows what he's doing. It's not awkward once he catches the ball. He's dribbling a lot better. He's in position better than what he was before. And we really, really need him because that athleticism that he brings is important on the boards. And what I love seeing in this game, which I didn't see as much in the Houston game, was that he wasn't hanging out at the 3-point line trying to space the floor. He was in there fighting for boards and in there, in close to the perimeter or inside the perimeter, close to the paint. So love to see some more movement from him, especially offensively on cutting because that allows for spacing. But, by and large, he seems to be coming into his own, not just defensively, but more importantly, offensively. Omar Payne has been doing really, really well lately too. I've been enjoying watching him. Diallo has been phenomenal, right? I mean, from a presence inside, a defensive presence inside. But Payne is a good second option. And he's another one that I like to see off the bench because it keeps him from fouling so much early. That's the biggest thing with him. He's very aggressive on defense, and he fouls a lot. Shooting, UCF shot 50% from the field. Amazing. If you shoot 50% of the field, you've got a chance at winning the game. Not like 29% or 12, 13% or,
we covered while shooting 14 or 15%. I don't know.
Well, that just speaks to the defense. We'll talk about that in Houston.
That's fair.
And then 12 for 15 on free throws. We were hitting our free throws, which, again, we did not do against Houston. We went back to shooting 50% at Houston, which was ridiculous. But Shamari Allen missed like 4 in a row, which is very out of character for him. We out-rebounded. And here's the big thing for me. What I've seen us do the last 4 games is we've been done really, really well on the glass. Against Kansas, we did really well. Against Texas, we out-rebounded them 37-22, 12-4 on the offensive glass. So we're getting second chance opportunities, and that's really important if you are behind. If you're behind and you take a shot, well, you lose the possession, you lose 30 seconds off the clock. If you can get that offensive rebound, then you can, really get back into the game really well without losing all of that time. That means you have more opportunities to get into the game, along with our ability to create turnovers. Then 34 points in the paint, and we all know how it ended with Terry. So, offensively looking at this game, we obviously put it together second half. Our defense kept us in the game until we started catching up in the second half, and we just shut them down. They couldn't do anything that they were doing before. We didn't have to switch defenses. We just locked down. So that's the exciting part for me because we've done it in different ways in previous games. Josh, what are your thoughts?
So I agree with all of that, and I think that it feels like there's a turning point in some of these games, whether it's Shamari driving hard to get an and one when we're about 13 points down or so, whether it's Diallo turnaround floater in the Kansas game, when these games where we're pushing and pushing
or how about that dunk?
Yeah,
where he basically sat on the leading the best defender on Texas's team, and he had to go out with back problems because he dunked over him literally and landed on his back on the way down.
I mean, I don't like seeing any.
If this was not a clean show, I'd be talking about where in the shorts Shamari's shorts were positioned when he was on that dunk. But this is a clean show, so we won't mention that.
I don't like any student athlete or any athlete getting hurt. I don't, and he already had back problems, which didn't help things. But you're right. It's like there's these pivotal moments, and sometimes it's either a team puts their foot on the gas and they just go Houston, Kansas State, or sometimes it's just we get back and chip back behind if we shoot well. Like BYU is that kind of intermediary, right? We if we got over the hump in that game and shot halfway decent, we were winning that game, but we didn't. And their team was very, very, very consistent. So to me, I feel like that Texas game, you can kind of even feel it as a fan watching it, if you had an easy time watching it, because of course the Longhorn Network is something we all pay for, right? But that is just, I know. Oh yeah,
I know you're being facetious, but I want to make sure everybody else knows none of us pay for the Longhorn Network,
and we're not going to. And I think it goes away after this whole contract with the SEC thing too. But I just feel like in that game, there was this momentum over time that kind of built up after they get, a little bit punched in the mouth right early, but you can see it slowly going. But when we start putting our foot on the gas, when we do similar, but maybe even a tighter defensive, not scheme, but like people are actually putting their arms out to defend and remembering it, not slacking down when they are doing this, yeah, right. When your hands are out, when you're actually bending with your knees and getting down, that's when tip balls happen. That's when you deflect passes. These are the things that they started doing even more and locking into towards the end of the game. So those are the things I want to continually see. And listen, if we lose when we lose games, it's going to happen. We're not going to win out. But if we keep seeing this effort we've seen since that Kansas game, and there was effort at the Houston game, that's just a team. Like, that is a team. And I still think at home, and we talked about this in Tech Chat, at home, I think we have a shot. But it's
I think it's more than a shot. We'll talk about that in a bit.
But I think
I'll say this.
The effort's there. The effort is there, and it's solid. And this is all we've been asking for all of our major teams: football team, basketball team, women. The women's team had an amazing effort and almost got a great win on the road too. These are the things that fans want to see, and I think we're seeing them, which is great.
Yeah, so for me, it's turnovers, right? When we keep it anywhere between 12 and below 15 turnovers, we win a lot of games because our defense, is so potent that we have a good shot at winning games. Alan, what did you think of the Texas win? I mean, this was pretty monumental. It's Texas. It's, a big deal. It may not be big deal. Terry said, hey, act like you've been there before. Well, guess what, guys? We haven't been there before. This is our first time playing Texas, and we played them at home. And this is our first time in first season in the Big 12 in a P5 league. That's a lot of firsts. Yeah. You're going to get excited. I'm excited. I'm excited now just talking about it. And at the end of the day, Scary Terry, know your lane, bro. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry.
I think everything you said is absolutely right. No, I think everything you said is absolutely right. I mean, it is a monumental win. We beat Texas. They're a pretty darn good basketball program. And to beat them on the road for our first Big 12 road win, I thought was really impressive. And the fact they were able to come back, down 12 at halftime, had a deficit late in the fourth quarter, were able to keep it together and get the win was just, I think hats off to them, not just resting on their laurels after the Kansas win. I think that kind of win already, quote unquote, made the season. And for them to not just kind of live off that win and go out and get another big win against a really good Texas team gave me hope for the rest of the season. I once again, defense led the show, but we shot well. I think I put in the show notes from free throw was one of our better shooting games from the charity stripe all season. So I was really impressed with that win, and it made me feel like, okay, we can cobble together some more wins, and the Kansas game wasn't just an outlier.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's funny because you talk about free throws, and as a former player, watching DeMar Langford, love the guy. He's got a lot of energy. I think his free throw shooting is actually holding him back, right? I think he'd be on the floor more. But it's almost like watching Charles Barkley hit a golf ball. It's so awkward and goofy, or Shaq trying to shoot a free throw. I feel bad because it's like you've played basketball, organized basketball this long, and nobody's been able to coach you out of that yet. Like, because it just puts him as a disadvantage as a shooter. So I don't know. That's an aside. But going back to Texas, let's talk about Scary Terry, since I've been on a tirade about this. Now, all of the country has chastised Terry for what he did, right? They all had, it was a great PR move for UCF, right? I mean, everybody was talking about the win and how it was treated and like looking at UCF, in a positive light and, all of this fun stuff. And he got absolutely lambasted, and rightfully so. Not only did he chastise the players in the line, he cursed at them. He was cursing up a storm, and not a lot of people talked about it, but it was S-word this and blah, 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 and all that stuff. Bro, act like you've been there before. This is P5 basketball, collegiate basketball. You do not curse in the handshake line at student athletes. That was more immature and showed less maturity on your part than anything that the student athletes did with the horns down. I'm sorry, bro, but you took a big L on that one. And then you followed it up in the interview. And instead of doing what everybody says you do in PR, when something kind of like that SID, that sports information director, if you guys don't know what that means, they're basically the handler and gets all the information for, the coaches and all that stuff and interact with the other teams. That SID must have been pulling their hair out. I'm guessing they probably had a hair transplant or called just for men after that, because they were probably bald. I know if it were me, I'd be pulling my hair out, his beard out, and everything else in between, right? Because it made Texas look soft. And not only did it make it look soft, you looked like a sore loser, like a really, really bad sore loser, because you lost to UCF, which you said, basically threw a low blow in that too, basically saying, hey, UCF, we expect to win when we play. Well, guess what? We expected to win, and we did. Like, I expected us to win. I talked about it last week. I said we were going to win that game. Josh didn't think so. Nope. But I did. Nope. And so did everybody else.
Glad
Texas,
to be wrong.
This is not their best team. Yes, they did really well last year. Yes, they brought a lot of people back, but they have not been playing well this year. So, Terry, supposedly everybody loves you and has a lot of respect for you. You disrespected yourself. Okay? Then, a couple days ago, you come back with this half-hearted, half-bleeped, apology, which, again, the University of Texas has a storied history. 100% agree. There's a lot of respect for their athletics program. They have the most money. Their donors throw a lot of money at it, right? There's a reason they are a top program and a top brand. But guess what? When you lose, act like you've been there before, bro, because you have this entire season. Take your L. Don't yell. Don't curse at our players, right? Just don't. Just don't do that, because you embarrassed yourself and you embarrassed the University of Texas, and you made it worse in your interview, and you made it worse with that half-hearted reply. Just let it die. Just let it die. All right, I'm done. Boys, what were your thoughts on Scary Terry?
Yeah, I've kind of been there. I actually have been there recently. You're playing some type of athletic or relatively athletic event, and something doesn't go your way, and maybe one time or two times you let it fester, and then all of a sudden you're just exploding. I think this might have been brewing for a little bit. I don't think it has anything to do with the students and what they were doing per se. I think as soon as they're up 16 the first half, or even 12 at the half, going into halftime, it's preaching, put your foot on the gas, get it to 20, let's pull these guys out and get the bench in, later in the game. And again, UCF was picked a bit last, right, by everyone in this conference. So it doesn't happen. The lead doesn't grow that big. And then, 10 minutes to go, it's not chipped at. We beat them by about 19 points with 10 minutes in the half. Their team was doing everything possible to lose. Our team was doing everything possible to win. It was just a disaster for that team from 10 minutes to 0. And I think chipping away at his annoyance with what was going on and maybe this being incredible that it's actually happening, I think that was really the culmination of, after all that stuff, you're going to do this? Like, no, right? And then going into like raging parent mode or something. And I couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe it. And look, I'm going to use one of your musical quotes here. He should have channeled his inner DMX, right? Stop, drop, shut him down. Open up
And
shop.
that's it. I'm not going to say open up shop because he shouldn't have opened up shop because he opened
That's
up his
fair.
mouth.
He did.
And that
He
opened up
said
shop for every
held
media
court.
personality in America.
Yeah, he held court. Kind of did. I mean, that's the reality of it. And if you, when you're in it, you don't, know the nuances. But forget what Mark Daniels was saying about what the students behind him were talking about all game. Let's ignore all of that, which you shouldn't, but okay. The players in the line. This was Nick and Marcus, and these were the people who were doing this weren't actually in the line shaking their hands at that moment. They had no idea what this man was talking about. So the whole thing was horrible. They took a huge L, and I mean, it was everywhere. It's something big is happening with UCF when my neighbors text me about it. And my neighbors texted.
What's going to be funny is I just can't wait for all the memes next year when they're in the SEC and they play somebody. So if he's still the coach next year, they're going to get eaten alive. All right, Alan.
A few more L's, and I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it was super childish in my mind for him to, first of all, the beauty of college athletics is the pageantry, and like doing the horns down is just part of like anti-Texas Longhorn culture. Like Oklahoma, Baker Mayfield, all these thoughts go through my head when you see that. And like, come on, it's part of sports. Like that's part of college sports, is the rivalry and the pageantry of it. To get all butthurt, like you said, about, us doing it is ridiculous. We won on the road and horns down. Like, look, if one of our rivals beat us and there was some sort of sign for it, I'd expect him to do it just like we do for USF. I mean, I don't understand.
We don't say USF here. We say cows.
I lowercased it in my mind, so
okay,
it's even. Right. So yeah, I mean, like when we play them, I always do that, and I'd fully expect our rivals to do that if we had some sort of hand sign. So for him to get all emotional over it seems a little ridiculous. When how many times have you had to see that in your career at Texas? So I think it's like Josh said. I think there was something else there. Maybe something's been brewing. I don't know, whatever it is, whether it's personal or on the court, he was mad about the loss, whatever it is. So, but I'll always do a horns down if we're playing them and we beat them. We have reason to boast. So
everybody's going to do it now. I mean,
they should, and the SEC will be merciless doing it. So
yeah, it's in Oklahoma's, it's in Oklahoma's fight song, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what it boils down to is, to your point, I could buy that, Alan, if it was in the moment and maybe even the interview afterwards, but then to come back later in the week and give a half butt thing, you've had time to think about it. Your handlers have had time to talk about it. Listen, I get it. Texas ruled the Big 12 for a really long time, and that's part of the reason Missouri left and a lot of those other schools left was because of Texas, right? They even got it into as a penalty in football games if you throw the horns down. It ain't your conference anymore, bro. You're done. You're finished, right? I mean, look at it from the fouling perspective. 14 fouls versus 13 fouls, right? Guess what? You think the Big 12's giving Texas any preference anymore? No. All you did was hurt yourself. You looked bad, and the last thing you want to do is put a magnifying glass on a loss to UCF if you're fighting for your job at Texas. Think about it. Think before you speak. All right, that's all I'm going to say about Scary Terry. Let's go ahead and move on to Houston, which was scary for a different reason. So Houston versus UCF basketball was what we expected to be, which was a dogfight. I mean, literally, it reminded me a lot of the old Cincinnati teams. Houston was very physical. We were very physical. I kept saying in the text thread, when were the referees going to take control of this game? CJ Walker had stitches within, I don't know, the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game. He had to leave because he got bowed and he got stitches. And they let it go on a little longer, and then they started calling the fouls, right? It was absolutely ridiculous and mayhem. They still let them play for the most part, but they did throw some fouls in there to kind of figure that out. UCF's defense, one of the best performances I've seen them all season. 100%. And they played man most of it. They didn't play a lot of zone during that. We got a little press in there. Both teams were not scoring. Both defenses were doing really well. And at the end, I think we got so much in our head, we didn't have enough opportunities when our pockets weren't picked or we weren't getting blocked. I've never seen a UCF team get blocked that often.
Yeah.
Where we got in our own heads a little bit, and we were just ice cold. They switched up defenses in the second half, and we actually played better against that defense. We got more open looks, but we could not knock anything down. I mean, when you're getting 3-pointers from Scylla, right? You got 2 3-pointers from Scylla, and who was the other one that got 2 3-pointers? That was a big. I can't remember who it was, but anyway. When Scylla's dropping more trays than what DJ is or Sellers is or anything else, you got problems. That being said, this was a fun game to watch. Like, UCF was in this game the whole time. And this is the number 5 team in the country. That's no excuse. We don't do moral victories around here. We played good enough defense to win. Our offense just didn't. Yeah. We could not penetrate. We were one thing that does drive me nuts about DJ is he likes to hang out for 10 seconds at the top of the key before he actually initiates any of the offense. But nobody was moving. It just was not good. And they were getting beat up and no fouls were being called. I can't blame them because literally every time that we would go into the paint, I'd say probably 4 of those blocks were fouls that just weren't called.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point I saw one of our players, I don't remember who it was, get thrown across the floor. No technical called. Nothing called on that. Are you kidding me?
And then DJ gets one like right afterwards, right?
Yeah. It was ridiculous from that perspective. However, I enjoy physical games, but when it's to the point where neither team can score because it's that physical, and we were doing our own. I mean, we were hand checking. We were doing, extending our arms above. There was one that was called that probably could have been called a technical where I think it was Omar Payne extended his arm, hit the guy in the face. That could have been a technical right there, but it wasn't called. So good on the refs for somewhat calling it the same way, right? But it just, what we did wasn't enough. And granted, again, when you have that kind of game, the way that you do that is you dribble into the paint and you draw fouls. Unfortunately, they weren't being called. So we stopped doing that. So you can't really blame the team for that. I wouldn't, I know people are getting frustrated, with that kind of stuff, but I'm sorry. That wasn't on the team on that one.
Yeah. I talked about it earlier about effort. And
let's talk a little.
I was going to say, I love this overall effort, and I can't say it enough. This is what we want to see. I don't care if we lose. I do, but I get losing to these top teams, right? And good teams that are we're all beating each other up. But keying in on that effort thing is huge, because this game we're going to talk about that's coming up, maybe by the time that you might be listening to it, dear viewer, we might have won or lost already, but we're going to talk about that and how involved and necessary that's going to be to whatever we're going to do for the season, and maybe deeper if we do well.
Yeah.
Are you steering it, Alan?
That's true. I mean, I'll say this, every team has their strengths, and we know that UCF basketball strength isn't the offense, and it's obviously the defense, but there's just no excuse to shoot 16%. I mean, our leading starter scored 5 points. The entire starting lineup combined for 2 field goals. I mean, I don't care what you did on defense. I don't care if you had one of the best defensive games of the season. There's just no excuse to play like that in offense. You're never going to win, especially against the number 5 team in the country with those type of numbers. I mean, I don't know what happened. I get we're going to regress to the mean both ways, whether it's we're going to shoot better next game, or if we shoot really good, we're going to shoot worse the game after. But that is just way below average. So that was just a pathetic performance. I mean, I can't believe the fact that they're even in the game shooting like that. They actually, most of their, or I think it was close to half of their points came from free throws, which kind of tells you the story there, especially when we're not really a great free throw shooting team either. So that was just an all around bad performance and definitely a letdown after the Texas game. But that being said, going to Houston, playing them, I think Ben said it on a recent podcast that, I forgot where I was going with that. But anyways, that was just overall just kind of a bad shooting performance. You got to put it behind you, and hopefully, we show up for the next game and play better. But it was definitely a letdown after, the big win over Texas. So, this season feels like it's going to yo-yo a bit, but I still have hope for some of the home games that we have. It's just going to be, can we do it on the road? Because that's obviously where we've shown we don't play well. We got blown out by Kansas State, now blown out by Houston. So we got to be able to get some road wins, especially in a conference like the Big 12.
Yeah, and I think we can. I think this game at home is going to be completely different. If we play the defense that we played there at home, I don't see Houston winning. I just don't. They ended up shooting 34.5%, but for a while there, they were right there with us. We were 7 for 44. 7 for 44.
I feel like
15.9% field goal shooting.
It's almost hard to do to shoot 7 to 44.
It's like that's historic levels of poor shooting.
That's like dropping the hoop like 2 or 3 feet, and you have the 10-year-olds or 6-year-olds going after it. That just doesn't happen. It's and at the same time, we kept Houston under 60 points, right? And for the vast majority of the game, right? So when you keep an offense under 60 points, you've got a good chance of winning the game. Now the final score was 42-57. Let's be real. We scored some garbage time points, maybe five garbage time points. This was a 15-point loss. But at the same time, 4 for 21 3-point shooting. Cryer had not made a shot in 3 games, but all of a sudden lit us up for 5 or 6 3-point. I think it was 5 3-pointers, right? The rest of the team only made one. He shot 50%. So it's like, it wasn't because of the defense. The guy just had a great night. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, one player having a great night was really the big difference, because none of the rest of the team was scoring. Houston was not scoring. So, again, to your point on the free throws, we were 24 of 33. We were at the charity stripe 33 times. That's a lot. We shot 72.7%, which is right around where our average is. We didn't do too bad from the free throw line. They were 11 of 16. They got 68. But what you just saw there is, we were talking about fouls not being called. Imagine how bad they had been mugging our guys if we got to the charity stripe 33 times and they weren't calling much early, right? So 41 rebounds to 42 rebounds. Houston is known for their rebounding prowess and offensive rebounds. We did well there. We rebounded them offensively 11 to 10. Defensive rebounds 30 to 32. Solid. Assists 5 to 12. You don't get by with 5 assists in college basketball. You got to have, it's the assist to turnover ratio is one of the big things in college basketball. 5 is just not going to get it done.
Steals, they only made 5 shots, so I don't think they could have gotten more assists if they tried.
Well, yeah. Like I said, it's not going to get it done, but I didn't see a lot of ball movement either. There was not a lot of ball movement, and they kept trapping early. So what were they doing early? They kept trapping our ball handler, and our ball handler was not handling it well. That's where a lot of our turnovers came from. Assists, 6 to 11. Another thing, just playing not scared, but hesitant. I don't know how many times during that game I said in the text thread, Avery or somebody else, it's just like, take the shot. Sellers too. He was in his head. An extra dribble here, blah, 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 whatever there. When you've got the open shot, take it, especially against a defense like that. Avery just was super hesitant. Block. Go ahead.
There are a couple people that were pretty hesitant. It wasn't just Avery. That was kind of the one adjustment I didn't see anyone taking, because maybe they felt something was going to flash past them when they were going up for the three, cutting across their face. I don't know what it might have been, but man, it felt like there were a ton of a significant amount of our team hesitating, and maybe because it was part of the shooting slump. But you're right. There's a lot of hesitation on the team that whole game.
Yeah. 3 blocks to 7, 15 turnovers. So 15 turnovers would have been surmountable. We could have won this game had we not shot 15%, 15.9. So I'll give it to almost 16, right? 8 turnovers for them. So we didn't get the number of turnovers we usually do. They got 15 points off of turnovers. So they were hitting trays off of turnovers. We only got 5. 9 fast break points to 10. Our offense does best when we get a turnover and we're playing fast break offense. But even then, our guys were hesitant on the other side of the floor, and there were blocks there too that you usually don't see. So it was just completely off. Points in the paint, 6. 6 points in the paint. With as athletic of a team that we have, that shouldn't happen. Fouls 16 to 23. And at the end of the day, what it boils down to is that this team just did not have enough ball movement, and they just did not do enough. And again, the refs weren't helping them, although later on they called it a lot closer. I can't remember what the first half fouls was, but I don't even think we made it into the double bonus in the first half, despite getting hammered and guys going back and getting stitches and everything else that was going on. So, end of the day, what do I say about this? I'm all right with this because we go back home, we can win that game. If they are going to stay number 5, or they probably moved up a little bit, our net ranking is still 67, which is pretty solid for where we are today. And if we win 50% of the games, we are going to be we're going to have an opportunity to have a bubble slot. So, which is much better than any of us predicted. I think Ben predicted the most wins was 5.
I think it was 6
in conference.
I think someone.
No, I'm pretty sure it was 5 because I went 1 under from him, and I went with 4. And we're already halfway to my wins, and our schedule eases up towards the end of it. We've got West Virginia coming in next. They're going to be home. They are playing better, but they also had a lot of variability with their roster. And on top of that, they've got a new coach. So with us being at home, I think we have a pretty good shot at a win there. We do need to, we'll go into and give our predictions later. Anything else you guys want to say about the Houston game? I think I honestly, for me, I'm okay with the outcome and happy with where we're at right now. I was expecting to get our clocks cleaned not clocks cleaned. I was expecting it to be a defeat against Houston. We beat Texas at home. So we were talking about away games and winning away games. That was an away game we won. So I'm good with it.
Same. I mean, this when we're comparing and contrasting to what Ben loves to say was the anomaly of the K-State away game, which it's looking more and more like it was an anomaly. If we're taking that as what's the worst case scenario we can do as a team on the road, this ain't bad, and against a like a Final Four team, it was Elite 8 team like this, Kelvin Sampson coach team. Like, Do I like losing? Absolutely not. But if there's a level of expectability of losing to a team that is ranked in the top 5, I feel like this might be it. I would have liked just kind of what Alan was saying. Like we need to shoot and score a little bit more. That's just I wouldn't say embarrassing. It's a mix of that, but it's also a tough game, and sometimes shots don't go down. It's usually just not like that. So I think even that shooting is probably going to be an anomaly to the game that's coming up in March against Houston again. So yeah, I feel as good as you can be coming off a loss from a top 5 team.
All right, Alan, any thoughts?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, I feel good about still where the season's at, and I'm happy to have 2 wins already. I thought maybe at most we'd have 1, and I wasn't even 100% sure of that. I think Johnny has them in a pretty good place right now. We know the defense is going to keep us in every single game. It's going to keep high scoring teams scoring low and having off shooting nights. I think we've established a pretty good, core, lineup with our starters and the couple of guys we have coming off the bench. And, I'm excited to see how it plays out. I think you're right. The schedule does ease up a little bit. So we have a chance to pile up a couple wins here and build some momentum for the rest of the season. So, I mean, I thought going into this, there was a less than 0% chance we could go dancing. And now, like you said, there's a possibility we could sneak in with one of those at-large bids. And at the very least,
I mean,
should
an NIT bid at this point be an expectation, or are we getting ahead of ourselves?
It feels like it's trending that, but it is still pretty early in the conference season.
100% agree. I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but it's something I don't think most fans would have thought after losing to Stetson and getting blown out by K-State. Like, that's not even in the universe. We're now back down to earth, and maybe that's a possibility. Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally went on a tirade against after the K-State loss, and quite frankly, rightfully so. I mean, that performance was pitiful, and if that was the expectation going forward, it's weird though. We had that K-State game, and then we lost that Baylor game in football, our first Big 12 game in such heartbreaking fashion. So I don't know, but talking about Baylor football, and not specifically about Baylor football, but talking about football, let's get into a little bit of football because we do have some things to talk about from the football side of the house. No,
look at that.
Look at that. He's right. See, I last week I had the wrong thing up there for half of the time that we were talking about it, and then switched it up. This is why we need Nobra, the producer. So keep me on the straight and narrow, and you guys unconfused. All right, so let's talk about UCF football talk for this segment. UCF, big news, got a late transfer from linebacker Ethan Barr from Vandy. He's a 6th-year guy. He's going to be a 1-year guy. Someone that we were after and we were pushing pretty hard. He ended up committing elsewhere. That coach left, and all of a sudden, Ethan Barr is a Knight. So linebacker, again, is one of the areas we identified that we need the most help with. So it worked out pretty well. Alan, do you have anything on Ethan as far as stats and whatnot and, his size? I know you do, so I'm going to let you take the floor a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, guy is 6'3", 245, pretty big guy. He's played a significant role at Vanderbilt the past 4 years, pretty much from his freshman year. He didn't redshirt. He went in and pretty much was playing from, week 1 of his freshman year. So that, I think this is a little side tangent, but I think what Gus has done this year better in the transfer portal is going after proven guys instead of those flashy former 5-stars like Jordan Johnson and Terrence Lewis and Brandon Jennings. We're getting proven guys that have played a significant role at their previous school. This is a guy that did it for 4 years in the SEC. Smart guy, has been like all academic team a couple years. His sophomore year was his best year. He had 85 tackles, 4 passes deflected, and 3 picks in the year. Actually was the leading linebacker for tackles in the entire SEC that season. In the last 2 years, he's put up nearly 100 tackles combined. had a couple sacks, a forced fumble. So this is a playmaker, someone like you said that we wanted it, and literally had just committed to a team that made the national championship in Washington. So clearly, other teams saw his talent, and we got kind of lucky there with the coach leaving for Alabama. So this is like a guy, like you said, that we've been targeting, and I feel significantly better about the linebacker room. Already, I think it's better than last year. I mean, when you talk about really the only productive guys were Jason Johnson and maybe Walter Yates, now we have 3 or 4 guys that played significant roles on their team last year. And Barr is really, going to be one of the leaders of that room. He's been a leader at Vanderbilt now. I don't think he was a captain, but he was, one of the leaders in the linebacker room. And he's been, close to an all SEC player. And, last year had another productive year as a senior. So we're going to get him here for his 5th and final year after a lot of reps, and a guy that can come in and should be a starter and a big contributor from day one.
Yeah, I think the big thing to your point about the linebacking core is the size. We upgraded our size, our run stopping ability. That was huge, and obviously an emphasis and a focus for Gus and everybody who was involved with recruiting. I do feel a lot better with someone like that anchoring the defense. And, it was Vanderbilt, but it's still SEC experience. And to your point, you've got a linebacker who's picking the ball 3 times in 1 year. That's a solid performing starter. And when someone comes in here like that from an SEC team, he's expecting was going to go to Washington at the time where they were, to your point, just was in the national championship. That person's expecting to start. So I'm expecting to see a lot of minutes out of Ethan Barr, and that's going to be a name that you're going to know as the season progresses throughout the year. So excited about that. Next up, we talked about, obviously that adds another transfer. So we're up to 15 now. According to On3, and some of these transfer portal rankings are kind of all over the place, but according to On3, we are now top 10 in the country in our transfer. We talked a couple weeks ago about, how, we talked a couple weeks ago about what our rankings were and how we'd upgraded and, NIL value and all of that stuff. And clearly, we have upgraded. So excited about that. UCF, and this is big news. So this one we're going to talk about a little bit here. UCF hired a new defensive coordinator, former UCF coach for about 3 weeks, Ted Roof, who coached with Gus at Auburn on the national championship teams. And obviously he's kind of like a journeyman defensive coordinator. He's been all over the place. But most recently, he was the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma. So, that's a pretty big deal. One, it's the DC from Oklahoma. If he was good enough for Oklahoma, he was getting paid a lot of money. I know that he's still getting paid money from Oklahoma off of his contract, which allows us to take him on the cheap. But more importantly, to me, is it gets us some experience for Addison Williams. So Addison Williams, we said this entire time, great recruiter, up and comer, very highly sought after coach, very, very well thought of. But he showed his lack of not maturity. That's the wrong word. Lack of experience this past season as a defensive coordinator. I mean, this guy got thrust into the role, had never been a defensive coordinator. Now all of a sudden you're a defensive coordinator in P5 football. One of the things, if you guys remember, that Trey talked about, which was the difference for him in the Big Ten versus the ACC, was the level of coaching and how good of coaches there were, how they scheme, how they adjust in game, et cetera. And Addison was really thrown into the deep end of the pool, and I don't know if he had floaties or not. So at this point, what I think is, this was a good move. It was a move to support Addison Williams, help him grow. And I feel like this was a move for a short-term fix to help Coach Addison, Coach Addison Williams get better at what he's doing. So now Addison Williams is listed as co-defensive coordinator and associate head coach. So wasn't really like a lateral move, wasn't really a bad move for him. I think it was just recognizing that he needed some help. And Gus, obviously, by keeping him, feels strongly still about Addison Williams. And obviously for the recruiting game, he's been huge for us the last few games. So I think this is a good move. It'll be interesting to see who, if it truly is a co-DC type role, who takes the lead. But at the end of the day, I think this was a solid move by UCF. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Alan, you want to go first? Because I usually take it over.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think first of all, for Addison Williams, yes, this is a move to get him a little bit more experience, to give him some help from someone who's extremely experienced, been a coach for over 40 years now. But I mean, yes, it's a little bit of demotion. I don't think, like you said, I guess we'll have to see if it's truly co-DC, but you don't just all of a sudden make someone a co-DC when they were, fully the DC the year before, if it's not somewhat of a demotion. So either way, he's got someone that's going to be making decisions with him or potentially over him. But I still think it's great. I think Gus recognized that he's still an up-and-coming star, Williams is, and he's obviously one of our top defensive recruiters. All of the recruits mention him when they say why they chose UCF or what they liked about their visit. So it was very smart keeping him on board. I would have been upset if we let him go, because he's been instrumental in getting some of these top 4-star defensive guys we've gotten, like Hayward and, Nakai Martinez and some of these guys. So, but overall, UCF had to do something on defense. It was one of their worst statistical defensive seasons in recent memory, if not ever, especially on the run D. Something had to be done. And I think Gus recognized that, and we all kind of criticize him for never making changes and being stubborn. Well, this was a good move. And yes, it may be someone that's been around for a while and, job hopped every 2 years. He's been at like 50 different schools, it seems like. But, there is the connection to UCF, and then there's the connection to Gus when they coached together at Auburn, when they won a national championship, as when, he was the DC, Roof was. So I think overall it was a strong move because UCF had to do something defensively different. And this is a guy that's been a Broyles Award nominee. He's had a top 25 defense on 3 different occasions. He's had a top 25 run defense with 3 different teams. So this is a guy that's done it multiple times, been at the top with a national championship, coached some really good defenses, for some schools that are known for defense, like a Georgia Tech and Auburn and stuff like that. So, and obviously he's still relevant if he was just coaching at Oklahoma, a team that was top 25 for most of the season. So I feel good about it because they need to do something, quite simply. And
I think too, the other part that is important to note here too, I think it became even more of an imperative with KJ Jefferson. Bringing KJ in for this year, I feel like Gus feels like he can win, and he needed to help out on the defensive side. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was not part of their conversation when KJ decided to come here. And he's a 1-year guy. He's got 1 year left. And this is his opportunity to make an imprint for his future NFL career. So I think that, if it wasn't going to happen before, it was definitely going to happen after we got KJ Jefferson. So, I agree. I think this is a solid move, but I don't agree that it's a demotion. Obviously, if he felt strongly enough about him, and his ability to bring in someone else, he needed to learn. But I feel like it's less about his confidence in Addison Williams and who he's going to be, and more about winning now and giving him some tutelage that he can use so that he doesn't have to.
There's no doubt about that part. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. So go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, we had another podcast. We talked about business for a while, and it was this 3 talking all the time. If you're the owner of a company and you see a talent that's going to do a lot of amazing things at your organization. Don't you give them the tools they need to succeed? And I feel like this is kind of that. This is another tool in the toolbox of ways we can improve not only UCF, but the people that are surrounding the team and all encompassing of that. So, I mean, I'm sure there are lots of conversations we're not privy to. I don't think Addison Williams is having that much of a problem with this. And I'm hoping, just as someone who wants to build and grow and will probably end up, might be a head coach at some point and probably has those desires. The more people that you're connected through, the more people that you've had influence from and around, the better other organizations will think you are. Scott Frost had a lot of that before he came here. Like, he's learned both in the NFL and in college football under a bunch of big names. And
I mean, he had Chip Kelly that he learned from, when he was at Oregon. Who was the other big guy? There was another coordinator that, or head coach that was a big time offensive coordinator that he learned under as well. I think for Addison's had a very rapid ascension in the coaching ranks. And, I think this is to your point, more of a support for him than anything else. So excited for Addison, because I think he's got the right mindset. He's not one of these hot-headed coaches. I think he's got the right mindset to take advantage of the situation that he's in. And, I couldn't say the same for our previous DC, T-Will. And I think this is going to be ultimately good for him. Okay, so let's kind of shift gears, but not. Grant Hurd was also he was truly let go and is no longer with the team. UCF didn't even announce it. I'm assuming out of respect to Grant. And there may be some other coaching movement afoot when it comes to that. But Grant Hurd no longer with the team. I know he was a big recruiter. So you heard him a lot. But did he also coordinate special teams as well?
No, I don't think so.
He did not. No, so it's interesting, even on ucfknights.com, like, he's still there, but his email is UCF football recruiting at athletics. So it's it's there, but not. So
isn't Brian Blackman the special teams coach?
That, I think you're right. I think it is Brian Blackman. I was hoping it was Grant Hurd. But Brian Blackman, that's another guy. But that's a different story. We won't talk about that. Grant Hurd, unfortunately, no longer coaching in the position he was coaching before. All right, let's talk a little bit about survey. I'm going to ask you guys. You guys are both season ticket holders, as I am. Yeah. Did you get the survey from UCF about some of the upgrades? It was, to me, more than anything, and yes, I took it, and it was rather long. But if you did take it, or you saw it, it gave you a lot of insight as to what we're doing with the tower and how we propose to generate revenue on it. What were your guys' thoughts? Alan, did you get it as well?
I didn't. No, maybe I did not get that. I would have filled it out.
All right, so you get to sit this one out. No, just kidding. Go ahead. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I definitely got it. It's probably just like all types of emails, depending on how it goes into your inbox. Maybe it is in junk or spam, perhaps. But yeah, I got that.
Alan got blacklisted. That's what happened.
I guess so.
They send me 2 of everything from UCF Athletics. I probably should deal with it, but I don't care that much. So if you are not aware, UCF put out a survey, and the survey was about some of the amenities, talking a little in the future, talking a little bit about the development money that we got from Orange County, and the ideas and visions of how to use it. And it was detailed. Like, it gave it went through, who are you and kind of what type of season ticket holder are you? Where do you
Are
currently
you going
have
to buy
tickets?
different pricing points?
Correct. And it gave ideas of what other teams do in these type of amenities, for everything from like full suites to outdoor suites with shade and covering to existing things. Like they talked about I think they were trying to figure out if people move out of the corner seats in the top of the stadium or the field cabanas, if they have, people to fill them after they do that. But they were basically figuring out what the new tower should look like and what that could feel like and what was your desire for that. And if it was too expensive at the first dollar amount of ticket, they would lead you down the path to lower pricing. It was really nice. It was a really good survey. It definitely showed a lot of things that could be potential. For those of you who don't mind blowing $2,000 to $4,000 a ticket for football, those are about the ranges for some of the lower to maybe mid-level stuff, up to like, here's these 16 seats that you can get for $30,000 or $50,000, like for the big donors or groups that get together. So it was really, really good. I liked a lot of it. One of the things I actually think has a lot of potential, and I feel it has a lot of potential. As many of you may know, like the Citrus Club and the club atmosphere that they have in a lot of downtown organizations where people go to eat and people conduct business is a thing at every single town, pretty much, or big city in the country. UCF is thinking about something like that called the Liftoff Club, or at least that's the project name, where there'd be a one-time fee and a monthly membership. But if you are a part of these clubs, usually there's a food fee. You have to spend money in food every single month.
There wasn't a minimum on. There
wasn't a minimum on that, which was kind of nice. And the idea would be there's a meeting space, it's available. I think the really cool parts would be like potentially for away games to have meetups. That was interesting. But truthfully, that's something I'd probably pay for. I think there's a lot of potential business to be conducted on campus, and there are a lot of people either on campus or in Research Park or in the surrounding communities that don't have a really good fine dining option. I mean, high level fine dining option. I mean, that's there seems to be a lot of potential there, because one of the things they were doing is a really high end dining service too. So I think there are a lot of great potential ideas out here. And I hope that it really, I hope they run with many of them, because I they're going to sell out every single suite they get. I don't think that's going to be as much of a problem. I think others are going to backfill, and that was kind of part of it too. Like if I don't have enough money to get to a higher level, or if my business isn't enough to donate to it, I'll probably move from the Commander to the Stadium Club, or maybe keep those seats and then add 2 more for the Stadium Club if enough people move out of there and the seats are kind of close enough to the middle. Like I sit on the 50-yard line. It's the sunny side, but it is the 50-yard line. So I don't want to go over to the other side to sit at the 20. That's just not the way I roll when I watch football. So I thought the survey was great. I love what the potentials are for that. And if you are a high value donor, or if you are a high value person, or your business has a lot of business to conduct with UCF fans, there's going to be a lot of opportunities in the next 2 to 4 years. Probably
so
more later.
For me, there were a couple of things. It was clearly targeted at businesses. So utilizing the space for businesses, and it makes more sense from that perspective as well, right? So especially considering we're using TBT funds to help fund this thing, so they would have had to have had some sort of plan for making this a multi-purpose space in the off season to generate revenue and bring business to the community in East Orlando. So from a seating perspective, they took a lot of a lot of different ideas. They used examples and images from other club areas around the country to kind of show you the look and feel of what they're going for, different setups for the spaces. TCU was one that they utilized. We know that they did a lot of work to talk with TCU. We knew that before on how they use their space. But the major changes that I noticed was, obviously an enhanced club experience, more clubs, right, on the west side. Looking at the folks that are, doing the stadium cabanas up in the up on the sides of the tower, and transferring them into, they had these like corner seats or groups of seats. So you had, your traditional club where you have 16, 20 people that can fit in there. Then you had like these corner seat areas, which were like mini club areas that had like the awning cover in the corners, but didn't have like a full covered air conditioned box. And, they were looking at, okay, would you be in at this price for 20 people? Would you be in at 16 people at this price, et cetera? They were asking what amenities were important. So was it Wi-Fi? Was it seat service for having people bring, food out to your seat? There were a lot of different things that they were looking at from an amenity standpoint. And then the tower itself, the Liftoff Club, as you mentioned, Josh, that was 100% targeted towards, businesses and folks with businesses, and having a club area, being able to have a high-end experience when you're conducting business. A lot of it, that went anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 for the club down payment a one time, and then various monthly payments anywhere from $100 to $300. They were talking about different events too. Would you be interested in wine tastings, high-end wine tastings there? If they brought in chefs, high-end chefs, and doing, a food or thing for high-end chefs. There was a lot of different things that they were proffering and using as ideas for this that made it a multi-purpose space. They were also talking about a tailgating experience, different tailgating experiences. One of them was using the lazy river, as we affectionately call it. Using that as a tailgating experience and how much you would pay for that. The open area that we saw with all the greenery, having that as a tailgating experience as well. So there was a lot of different things that they're utilizing it for. And for UCF football, I think they were very, very smart and gave a lot of insights that can generate revenue out of this new space. So excited about what they're doing there and what the potential is there. It's going to be a nice space. It's just a question of where the demand is. I saw much more of this is what we're thinking about. What's the demand for each type of use? And then what's the price sensitivity for that demand as well? So they were trying to get a good understanding of that as well. Okay, so that's all I had there. Basketball also, by the way, did unveil the new basketball areas, and those looked pretty awesome as well. So I was excited about that. All right, let's go ahead and transition to, since we are in the P4, we don't have Trey this week, obviously, so he's not yelling at a cloud. And we don't have any student education this week. But what we do have is we want to talk a little bit about the comings and goings of the P4 this week. So as we are now part of said P4, and we kind of mentioned this in the past, the ACC turmoil that's going on. It's kind of like faded into black, but there's some more, information on the horizon. FSU is trying to get out of the ACC and limit their price. There's been a lot of different arguments, with regard to the ACC not, sharing or having an availability of the actual grant of rights, which people have requested it and received copies of it. They've also, talked about how all of the contract negotiations went down. And more recently, we found in that not only does ESPN have a look in 2027, they've also got an ability to just walk away from the contract, which is interesting with the timing of everything that's going on with FSU. And then, as a sign of the times with everything that happened with Oregon State and Oregon, Washington State and Washington, with Washington State and Oregon State being left in the conference, the University of North Carolina system actually put something in place which protects, essentially doesn't allow the schools to make their decisions on conference affiliation anymore. So essentially, if you're looking at it, and people need to understand a little bit about universities, there's university systems, and then there's universities of standalone, right? And the standalone universities can make those decisions on their own. If you're part of a university system, then there's a board of regents, right? And then there's a higher level of that. You saw that with Alabama and what happened with UAB, right? And their conference affiliation. So you basically, the state of North Carolina has hamstrung and tied at the hip North Carolina and North Carolina State at this point. So if one moves, if one moves and was left behind, then it would leave them at a disadvantage, especially if a team like FSU left and the conference collapsed, and they didn't want to hurt the school in their university system. So they're basically just saying, hey, UNC, if you get an offer and you can't take NC State with you, or at least an equivalent offer for NC State, you're not going anywhere. So very, very interesting stuff that came out of that. But, the ACC has sued FSU. FSU has sued the ACC. We've never seen anything so blatantly open. Most of these things have been done as backdoor deals, and everybody knows where they're going. FSU had to have some sort of assurances, I assume, to make this kind of move. But it is a mess in the ACC, and it looks more and more like, and if I were ESPN, I'd walk away from that deal because they're completely unstable over there. Tobacco Road no longer owns the ACC, and the biggest brands have all talked openly about leaving. So I think, we've joked about it. We've been quasi-serious about it. But what you're watching is the dissolution of a conference in public, which has not happened before. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the state of college football right now to me. We saw the demise of the Pac-12, like literally overnight. It was like Colorado left and then boom, it imploded. And I mean, the writing's been on the wall for this to happen to the ACC. We've heard Florida State, how unhappy they were in the conference and all the rumblings they've made along with Clemson. And I mean, if a brand like Florida State leaves, that's just a domino that's going to fall, and the rest of the conference is going to demise. I didn't read the finer print. I thought the grant of rights was through 2034, but obviously I know Florida State was exploring
2033. Yeah.
2033. I know Florida State was exploring their legal avenues to get out of that, but I think it sucks. I mean, I said the same thing about the Pac-12. Yes, the Big 12 gained four teams, and it made us a stronger conference, which I was happy about and excited about the 4 teams that are joining. But I think it's a sad state of college football when you have conferences that have been around for nearly a century or more that just are done. And it just little by little, the fabric of college football, all the great things, the regionality, the pageantry are just getting chipped away. And I personally don't like it. Like, I understand the business, I understand it's money. I understand that probably makes the Big 12 stronger, at least in the short run, maybe. But and we look a lot more stable than the ACC does. But if you let me choose, I would say I wish we still had the Pac-12, and I wish we were to keep the ACC, because I like the regionality of college football and rivalries that have been around for decades to stay intact. But that's the state that we're in now with college football and college football.
I wish we would have been in the Big 12 a little while longer and gained our footing before all this stuff started going down. That's what I'll say to that. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I'm just gonna yes, and
mine.
I think both of you spoke perfectly. Here's the thing. That stable ground comment is so big because what if it become it's big? It was 6, and then 5, and then 4, and we know how it counts down, and it's not going to be 0, and I don't think it's going to be 1. I think.
Do you think it'll be 3?
Well, we do. Here's the thing. It
3 what?
really depends.
3 conferences left over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It truly depends if basketball and football are what we're talking about. If so, there's 0% chance it could be less than 3. We have the 14 hardest schedules remaining in college basketball, men's college basketball, our entire conference. Like it is unthinkable to leave the Big 12 out as it stands, and it's not like okay teams aren't coming. I mean, Arizona's now coming in, right? So if it is a total package, we'll see. Now, if we have a couple of years as a new conference to build up just a football only part of it, I think we might have a say there too. It's not like Texas have been world beaters for 20 years. They did great this year, but
it's about media markets. It's about media markets, and there's a reason
Big 12
why.
has some big media markets though now.
What's that?
So Big 12 has some big media markets now.
Yeah, but
Houston and Orlando and Dallas.
Yes, and because I don't want to say but, right? I want to say and because SMU was in Dallas for a long time, and we see how good they were as far as media markets. But I think it's more about brand consolidation. I've been beating this drum since probably 2017, 2018. It's about brand consolidation. And the one thing that worries me about what you said, Josh, where you said if, and I'll put a qualifier on this, if they separate football and basketball, I think we're already going down that path. One of the first things that Brett Yomark said when he came on board was we need to figure out ways to monetize basketball more. Now, at that time, we were thinking, hey, this is forward-thinking Brett Yormark, coming in, and he's a basketball guru, and he's trying to make the Big 12 worth more. I think there may have already been some indications back then in the back doors of what was going on separating football from basketball, and he was getting ahead of it and setting the narrative. And all good executives, if there's potential bad news, you want to control the narrative, right? And as much about football as with the Utes, bringing in the Utes in Arizona and Arizona State and Colorado, really from a basketball perspective, those 3 teams, because Colorado hasn't really done much, but those 3 teams are considered blue bloods. At least 2 of them are considered blue bloods, and Utah has done really, really well in basketball in the last 5 to 8 years. So I feel like it's more about controlling the stanchions, like being proactive for that, because that threat is a real possibility. And if they do separate, then what ends up happening? Well, what ends up happening is you see the SEC and the Big Ten expand and separate. And that's where I'm worried about UCF football. That's truly where I'm worried about UCF. And, I just wish we had more time because it's not going to get any better or any easier for that to happen. And quite frankly, if the money's there, the money's there, and they're going to do what the money tells them to do. And, ESPN now is in a position. Yes, they have the grant of rights, but remember the grant of rights is with the conference. It's not with ESPN. So ESPN can do whatever they want contractually. The grant of rights just says, hey, whatever contract the conference gets, you're assigning us those rights until 2033. If ESPN then says, hey, 2027 rolls around, we're not renewing this contract, or we're doing it a lot less, then they do have harm, to the financial institution. They have a lot better case to get out of that contract or that grant of rights, because the decisions that the ACC did, and you're seeing them lay the groundwork now with the Cal ads and the Stanford ads and SMU, especially, that is paying nothing, then that argument becomes a lot more valid. So ESPN is in a position that if they wanted to, they 100%, and they would fund this new league. They'd take that college football playoff money and fund this new league and own that property, because now they aren't paying for everybody else, right? And so they're using the same pool of money to pay for the premium brands with the premium viewership. And ESPN's stated goal from the very beginning, even before they were absorbed by Disney, was to put the top brands on TV. It's not the top teams, it's the top brands. No matter what Texas's performance is, they draw fans. And as far as the ratings are concerned, which is what pays TV media deals paychecks, right? And we've talked about it on here before. It's how much they make in ads and revenue. If the playoff goes away and they go to something like this, now it doesn't matter if Fox wants the playoff or not, because all the people are going to be watching those games, or at least they think the vast majority of them will, which leaves UCF at the top of the best of the rest yet again. And that's my concern.
Well, it depends on whether or not, to me, it depends on whether or not you still need anyone else in Florida. And it also depends on if they are willing to take a bet on upstarts, right? We are not an established brand. We're not no one. People do actually watch us because they have seen some of the things we've done in the recent history. We're not talking Miami here or the stuff we did in the 80s. We're talking the things we did in 2017, 2018, when Trey was on the team for one of those. We're talking about, 2013. We're talking people who are still in the NFL who've been on some of those teams. This isn't, the past, right? But like you said, we need a ramp. We need ramp, and we need funding. We're like a startup. Maybe we've already got our pre-seed money, and now we're looking at Series A just came in, and now we might need more traction. If we can position ourselves as that upstart or startup, I think there's legs. I mean,
the thing of it is this, right? So if you're FSU and you know this is coming, or you think this is coming, it doesn't matter if it's 500 million, 250 million, 200 million, 150 million. You do everything that you can to position yourself to get out within the time frame that the change is coming, because it's cheaper the longer you go into this contract, right? To get out. Yeah. That's precedent. But if we truly think that change is coming, then it's worth it for you to leave if you think you can do that. And I think Clemson's sitting on his hands, waiting to see how this turns out. The problem for Clemson is going to be they got a Dabo problem, and they're not going to be consistently at the top and haven't been. So, all right. That's enough about that. We are now 133 in, but I do think that Houston, we do have a problem, and we need to be very, very wary of what levers are being pulled. And there's a lot of small indications to me that makes it seem to me like that may be where we're headed. All right, let's move into Alan. Do you have an oxymoronic stat of the week for us this week?
I do, and it has to be about the free throw shooting. I mean, sorry, the just the field goal shooting. But so I could not find the site that I use for stats only went back as far as 2009, and the shooting percentage we have of 16% the other night was at least the worst since 2009. The second lowest I could find was 22%. So we did even worse than that. What is that? Over 15 years or so. So that was bad. And then I also looked up the worst shooting team in the country this year statistically is Mississippi Valley State, and they're shooting just under 40% on the year, and their worst shooting performance all season was 29%. So I'm going to take a guess that this was the worst shooting performance in the country of the season so far. And it was definitely the worst of the last 15
historically, the
years.
worst was 12, and we were at 16.
Oh, right.
So I'd say,
second worst.
yeah, okay. I'd say, and that was Idaho. So I think you've got a pretty sure bet that this is the worst of the season thus far.
Right. So that was my depressing stat of the day.
Oh, so not oxymoronic, just depressing. Okay. So everybody well, I'm not going to say that. All right. Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week. What do we got going on this week, Josh?
So I had a really good one queued up. And as we all know, Brandon Helwig was a guest on the show in previous weeks. And we're members, some of us are members of the Dungeon. I think all of us are. And he dropped my stat earlier this afternoon, and so I had not my stat, my fun fact. So I had.
Are you saying Brandon was biting off of you? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, not at all. We have access to all the same information, right? It's related to Bob Huggins and West Virginia. And you know, he was a former UCF coach, if you didn't know that. But
are you sure it wasn't the beer can count?
Yeah, we're not talking about anything in alcohol. What we are talking about, though, is a little bit about something related. So just hold on hold on to your seats. John Denver has two songs that are state songs, meaning a state legislature has said this is one of our state songs. And two of those, he only has two songs that are in state legislatures that were voted as state songs. And those two states are in the new Big 12. What are those states and what are those songs?
They're both in the Big 12?
They're both in the new Big 12.
All right, so I'm going to say West Virginia.
That's the obvious one, talking about hoops this week, and the song is?
Mountain Mama.
Not the name of the song. Do you know the actor? I mean,
no idea, dude. I know I can sing along to the chorus, but I have no idea what the name of the song is.
Okay, what's the chorus?
Really, Josh? I can sing along with it. I didn't say I know the chorus.
Take Me Home.
Country Road.
Okay, there you go. So that's one. Now, what's the other one?
Where I Belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama. Yeah. Okay.
There you go. You got it. So that's one. What's the other one? I thought this one was kind of interesting. It's obvious when you hear it. But
isn't it Colorado?
It is.
Now the song I have no idea, but I know it's I knew it was Colorado. I don't know the song. Was it Yellow? Was it no? Not Yellow Rose.
I'll give you a couple seconds. I thought
just give me a hint, bro. Nobody wants dead air on a podcast where we're looking confused.
So it's about the tallest thing in the state of Colorado.
Rocky Mountains. Yeah. Okay.
I'll give it to you. Rocky Mountain High. That's fine.
Yeah, there it is. Rocky Mountain High. Yeah. All right. So cool.
The couple of things that I thought were interesting. I mean, the West Virginia, they sing it all the time at the football games and everywhere else. So I thought that was a good tie into the basketball game. But when I started looking up more about John Denver, I was going to go his actual name, which is a tough one. But I wasn't surprised that he has two songs that state legislatures have made like the state song, because he has a bunch of songs. You know,
well, he has a bunch of songs about like ecosystems and
so. Sunshine on My Shoulders and Calypso and all. Yeah, he has a ton of great music. And if you haven't listened to John Denver recently, no matter your age, take a listen. But when I saw that Colorado was also there, I'm like, that's a good Big 12 tie-in. So that is the sometimes funny fact of the week.
All right, great. Well, that leaves us, because we're down two people, that leaves us with our quick update on UCF Sports. Josh, take it away.
Oh, you got to see. Listen, I have to. You got to give me more time. That's all I'm going to say. So the quick update on UCF Sports, we have the UCF women's hoops. They're down to 0-6 in Big 12 play. They narrowly lost to number 12 Baylor, and that was a close game. Most of the game, they were actually up at the half. They had their third quarter. Baylor made a push, and they kind of couldn't get back from that in the fourth quarter. They lost 77-74 on the road. Men's tennis, they stay unbeaten with a 6-1 win over Georgia Southern after beating Northern Texas 5-2. Now, women's tennis are started their season with a 4-0 sweep over number 20 Georgia Tech. We talked about this last week, how they had ranked teams just to come right off the gate, and they did really well there. So we're doing pretty good in most sports. Women's hoops needs to step it up a little bit, but I have a feeling they need.
We've said this before.
Year.
Women's hoops is like this close.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They need one or two impact players, and they'll be there. And more so, same problem as UCF men's hoops, which is consistent offense. If they have consistent offense, they'll be in good shape. They have a good 3-point shooting. They've got some bigs. They're just not consistent.
And it's just kind of the same thing. I feel like given another year, we've already seen progression and growth from year to year. And again, the Big 12 is not a slouch of a conference in most sports, if not all sports. So yeah, I feel we're generally doing pretty good.
Awesome. All right. Well, guys, and gals, that will wrap it up for us. You got a quick show this week, an hour and 41 minutes. Just because we're down 2 people, so we didn't get to get their opinions, but we will miss them, and super excited to get them back. I am excited to watch this West Virginia game. I'm expecting a dub, and looking at them, understanding that they have kind of been thrown together. They are getting back their number 1 offensive threat this week, of course, when we play them. But I'm not worried about, because he's a 5. And we've got a lot of, great players in our front court. So I'm expecting us to be able to handle that handily, plus him getting back into the rotation. We saw that with CJ Walker earlier this year and getting the groove. I don't think they're going to be able to run the offense through him consistently like they did before. They are playing better. They do have a brand new head coach. They do shoot better than us more consistently, but our defense, I think, more than makes up for that. So let's talk about that really quick. Who do you got for the win, Alan?
Go UCF.
Go UCF just because it's UCF, or you think?
No, I do. I think it's a game we can win. I feel like
since you're a degenerate, are you going to bet on UCF or not?
What is the spread? Is the question.
I don't know, because I don't bet. I only look at the spread right before the game.
Let me see if I can find it really quick. Josh, you do your prediction, and I'll see if I can find it.
So yeah, if you want to grab it, I just had it up too. So I should go opposite what everyone is saying. It really should happen.
I agree, because you thought we were going to lose to Texas, and we won.
Yeah, and we won, right?
Are you going to this game, by the way? That's the most important question of this podcast right now.
I feel like I might. I don't know. I might take my daughter with me. We'll see. I don't know yet.
Maybe she balances your bad juju. Maybe that's what that'll.
I wish you would. I mean, I don't know. I can't go to a few games in the coming weeks, some big games, because I'm going to be doing some business travel. So I don't want to go to men's and women's basketball games and not see a win this year. So the answer is to be determined, but I'm probably going to be there, and I do think we're going to win this game. It's West Virginia is not, interim coach, Bob Huggins issues, not doing so well generally, but the reality is any team in this conference can defeat any team in this conference at any time. We've proven it. Everyone else has proven it. But I think we're going to win this one, and I think it's going to be something like a 9-point win.
Yeah. Also, just to add it, so the spread is UCF is actually favored 7.5. So I do think UCF wins this game. This is one of their quote unquote easier games, even though we've all talked a million times. The Big 12, nothing is easy. But funny enough, I don't know if we mentioned this, but West Virginia's losses, Kansas State, and their wins, Texas and Kansas. Thought that was pretty interesting. Very similar. So yeah, I am legitimately predicting that we win the game though.
Awesome. All right. So I think we're all in on a win. So, excited about that. Nobra, did you have a pick, West Virginia or UCF? And are you muted? You're muted. Can't hear you, bro.
UCF.
UCF. All right. So we're all in on UCF to win. I'm excited to watch this game. And, I do think it's a dub. And, as long as we keep going 50-50 ball here, I feel really, really good. And again, at the end of the day, I feel like we are better than what we expected. So everything is a bonus, right? So even if we go 50-50, if we go, win 50% of our games, or even if we win 45% of our games, or even 40% of our games, that's still better than what we expected. So, and it makes for an exciting season, which is what I was looking for, not getting blown out. So with all that being said, have a great week, everyone. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, recommend, give us feedback, all of the good things, and go Knights and
Charge on.
You guys are
so
so
what do you
excited
think of
about
the
11
how
o'clock in there.
dare you? What do you think? You like the how dare